Hello and welcome to Xena Warrior Chatzums. Whoops, the #1 podcast about Xena Warrior Princess by two people who have never watched it before. I am Alan Ibrahim, and he is my source, listener. When I reach down into myself to do things I'm not capable of, it's all because of him. Don't you know that by now, Magellan?
You know, I didn't think that the show could say something more romantic than it's already said, but that is like the most romantic thing I've ever heard in a show. Ever.
Seriously. My source.
You're my source.
If a Xena fan hasn't already used that in their vows, then get on it, fans. Come on, girls. Let's get it together.
Yeah. I want to see just a supercut of lesbian weddings with people calling each other their source.
Yeah. Oh, God.
That would really heal me, I think, deep down.
I could hold space for that. I had a listener recently reach out to us and say, I really love all the Wicked references. Essentially implying like ... and also where's the fucking Wicked pod, you clowns? And I was like, we were at a convention when the hyperfixation faded, and now I don't want to do it anymore.
Care to listen, look to the
Patreon.
Yeah, not really though. I mean, yeah, eventually we could do a wicked talk.
Yeah.
You're not interested anymore, huh?
No. I definitely am.
No. Please, wait.
Please, I really want to do a Wicked pod. It's just I understand that there's like a hot zone where like both of us have seen it within maybe 72 hours, where it's like this podcast will be so energetic and fiery, and once that fades, it's like now we're reflecting. And I still want to do it. I really do. I just I'm reading the room. Do you still want to do it?
Yeah. I do. Maybe we need to watch another movie so that we can do what we did with Cats and Rise of Skywalker, where we did a single podcast about both.
Oh, God. Why do we do that? What?
It was 2019. You know, it was a different time. I mean, everything was so much simpler then.
Yeah, that's so true. Gosh. What else is going on, man? It's almost Christmas. We got 10 days left on the board. You got all your gifts in order?
No, I didn't. It's sort of everybody who I would gift, we're all kind of doing like all right, we're not going to do gifts this year, right? It might be easier on everybody if we don't, right? And everyone's kind of like giving each other a look like
it's a Cold War. It's a Cold War detente.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like my family's doing that this year, and we're doing that this year.
Yep.
Which is good. I was unemployed for a while. I don't think I could do a big Christmas gift blowout.
Sure, you got to recoup the finances, yeah.
But it just takes one person to be like, I'm just going to get you a pair of socks. I'm just going to get you one little thing.
One little
and then
sock.
Suddenly it's all over.
I mean, you could also, if you just want the feeling of giving someone something, like either write somebody something or give them something that you already own. Like, you don't have to spend money on a gift for it to be meaningful. Right?
That's true. Or like, my family, you know this, you're going to join us for it. We do a Christmas cookie decorating thing.
Yeah.
Once a year. So maybe it's like I bring something to that. It's sort of like a gift for the crowd, or like it enhances that event in some way.
And that's why I'm Magellan. I'm bringing a Sterling Pink karaoke machine, and I'm going to be performing all of the Wicked soundtrack for my friends and family.
Popular. I'm gonna be popular. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do.
I'd actually really love that to happen. I'm very excited for the cookie decorating. My mom,
That'll be fun.
I told her this week, she was like, "You guys still do that?" I'm like, "Why would we stop doing that?" She's like, "Aren't you adults now?" I'm like, "We've been adults for like 10 years. What do you mean?"
Yeah, they're just it's just self-expression. It's cookies. My mom sent us, me and my siblings, a picture. She got new cookie shapes.
Huge. This is huge, listener.
It's a, I don't know where this was being sold, maybe Target or something. But it's Ninja Gingerbread Men.
Oh, Gingerbread Man,
gingerbread people, Gingerbread Man. So it's just like a gingerbread person, but they're doing like a flying kick or something, which is fun. I don't know what those shapes are going to look like when they're not because on the box they have the faces on them, so you know.
When there's no like faces or icing on them, like, can you even tell it's a ninja?
Yeah, and friend of the pod, best friend of the pod there, Jim, I think is probably going to see things in those shapes that none of us could have imagined. It's going to be a real Rorschach test this year.
Oh God, yeah. Yes, the reason I said that, by the way, was Ninja Bread Man was a 2005 platformer for the PlayStation 2 and the Wii from '05. And
okay,
it's not based on anything, but I guess
often considered one. I don't think this is based on that. I gotta be honest.
Often considered one of the worst games of all time per Google. Nice. Okay.
Okay. What about all those Burger King games where you're
people like those? Sneak King
or something. Sneak King. Yeah.
And the other one? I think there's two.
There was like a driving one, wasn't there?
Burger
like Grand
King
Theft Burger
games. Or something. Pocket Bike Racer, Magellan.
Sure. Yeah. Pocket
and then there was
Bike
Big
Racer.
Bumpin', which is a bumper car.
Sorry, what? Sorry, did you say Big Bumpin'?
Yeah, it's called Big Bumpin'.
Big Bumpin'. Big Bumpin' with the Whopper.
Is an advergaming title from Burger King for the Xbox and 360, published in 06.
Yeah, I think Tom from Toonami reviewed that one, actually.
Oh, God.
I give Big Bumpin' for the Xbox an 8 out of 10.
This joke is for no one except me, and I appreciate it. They were just giving those out with every value meal, man. They're just, hey, you want a video game?
Yeah.
Imagine going up to the drive-thru at Burger King, like, drunk off your ass at 2 a.m, and you're just like,
hey, where's my Big Bumpin'?
Where's you guys got Big Bump? They're like, which one do you want? You're like, I want Big Bumpin'. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you give me sneaking, I'm gonna be upset.
I already got all the achievements in that one. I got the 1,000 on that one, big boy. Damon.
I can't imagine it had a full 1,000.
Oh, right, because they like certain games, like DLC games, they wouldn't put the full 1,000 in there.
Sneaking achievements. There are 12 achievements worth 200 gamer score. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a full 1,000.
Not a full 1,000. Okay, that makes sense. Anyways.
That joke was inaccurate.
Damn it! I screwed it up.
Let's travel a little bit further back in time, though. Forget about the aughts. This is not an aughts podcast right now. Sometimes it is, but not right now. This is a 90s podcast.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Xena Warrior Princess now. Did you see my notes by any chance?
I gave them a skim, and I'm excited to talk about the second episode.
One? Okay, great.
And your experience watching it. Yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay, great. But before we get there, we're going to talk about a wonderful episode, which is Season 3, Episode 13, One Against an Army. This episode was written by Gene O'Neill and Noreen Tobin. It was directed by Paul Lynch, and it aired February 9th, 1998. Magellan, what happened in One Against an Army?
In this episode, Xena must stop the Persian army from reaching Athens, or Greece will lose to them. But when Gabrielle is hit with a poison arrow and has hours to live, Xena is caught between Gabrielle and the greater good.
What's wild is that is the whole episode. There's not too much else going. There's no B plot. It's a bit
of a bottle episode, kind of,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it starts in the field, and they go back to the field, but otherwise it just takes place in this barn, this like really intricate little barn that they made, and also laced with traps later on. Yeah, I think this is a really fascinating episode in where it lands in this season of television of Xena, because we had this big dramatic rift between Xena and Gabrielle, theoretically concluding with the bittersweet. And now it's like, okay, we've recovered. We've done a fun episode. What does our relationship look like now? And we need to reestablish the affection at the center of it. One of the ways we do that is we introduce huge stakes and make one of them choose the other over everybody else. The greater good, as both that summary and the episode repeatedly bring up. I was also trying to view this one in perspective of when it came out, and just in the landscape of TV. So one of our favorite resources on Chatz is tvtango.com, because they post everything that was airing on a certain night that you punch into their website.
Right. You can look up the day and see that.
And I couldn't find Xena on there. And the reason is that Xena was a first-time broadcast syndicated show. I don't know if you knew this. So essentially, for those who don't know, for listeners who don't know, the way TV, especially in the 90s and 2000s, used to work was TV shows would air on one network, and then after about 100 episodes, if they made it 100 episodes, would get syndicated, which means you could find it on any major local broadcasting channel, and they would pick their own schedule for it. Otherwise, it had a time, and it came on one network. So Xena was a rare example.
Xena just went straight to syndication?
Yes, it was any network that would take it. So it was on Sci-Fi a lot. It was on ABC. It was on NBC. It was everywhere. So TV Tango doesn't know what to do with that because it doesn't know which, like, it only shows you the stuff that aired nationally, not the stuff that aired, like, I'd have to, like, look up a thing that's like, what aired in Boston, Massachusetts on February 9th, 1998, and then I would be able to find it. So
interesting.
But February 1998, the Winter Olympics are happening. So in theory, you are tabbing from the Winter Olympics over to Xena Warrior Princess at some point that evening to watch Xena and Gabrielle profess their love.
The Tanya Harding Winter Olympics?
1998 Winter Olympics.
Oh, that was 1994. I think,
oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, 1994 Olympics.
Yeah.
1998 is Japan. That's in Nagano.
Mm.
So that's happening. But otherwise, it's just like other shows that you're familiar with. Your Private Practices, your Fresh Princes, etc., etc., etc. Anyways, fascinating episode. Really liked it. What did you think of One Against an Army?
Yeah, we had this maximalist episode last week with Bittersweet, and so it makes sense that these two episodes return to something much smaller and more grounded. Not to say that they're not actiony. There's a lot of great action. I actually think the fight scene at the end of this episode is one of the best we've seen in a while.
Agreed.
Partly because it just gets to the basics of, like, you want to watch Xena beat up like 20 guys.
Yeah,
we're gonna do that, and it's gonna be pretty cool. But we're returning to the core of what the show's about, what you enjoy about it, and it got me to enjoy Gabrielle Xena moments again, because I think for a while, because of Gabrielle's dishonesty about her kid and because of Xena's dishonesty about killing that guy, whose name I forget now, the bad guy
from this one.
No, from the Land of Chin, when she killed that guy who was the kid who became the evil emperor guy.
Oh, give me a second.
Anyway, there was like so much unspoken, hidden things that I was having a hard time enjoying the episodes amidst that we're trying to do, like, oh, we're having fun, or we're just going on a little adventure. And so I appreciate these two episodes for acknowledging what we just went through. There was the sharing of secrets, and that is in the immediate past. It still has some bearing on these episodes. These episodes are where we see Xena and Gabrielle's forgiveness for each other actually take root. But they're also, at the end of the day, not very complicated episodes. They're kind of classic in what they're doing and what they're reaffirming, as opposed to doing something brand new. So I don't think I'll have a ton to say about them.
Yeah,
because they're not doing like totally novel things, but they're taking the time to do what I think was necessary of getting us to reconnect to this core relationship in the show and enjoy it again.
You're done with this pair of episodes that we watched?
Yeah, but it's not a new thing like, oh, Gabrielle's poisoned and she's gonna die. Like, we've literally seen that plot happen before. So that was a little, okay, I love that we're saying romantic things. I know that Gabrielle's not going to die in this episode. I know that you're not going to do that. But it was still enjoyable for what it was.
Ming Tian, by the way, aka the Green Dragon, is who you're thinking of.
That's right. Ming Tian.
I agree. This is not a unique episode, and I don't think every episode needs to be unique. I think, especially like you're saying, where it lands, it's like, oh no, we actually needed like a very simple sort of like, let's reestablish things episode, and we get that, and it even segues into the next one well, where it's like, okay, now that we like have affirmed that we like each other and care about each other, what happens when we throw a different type of wrench into that? So this episode's mostly just, I don't have a ton of notes about it, but it's Gabrielle is starting our episode as we do our little recap here, practicing her flips. She's trying to do acrobatic flips just like her girlfriend, and she keeps messing it up, and she keeps saying, just one more try, I'm gonna do it over the stick, it's gonna be so cool, and I'm gonna land it. She can't land it, and Xena ends up slicing one of her boots off to keep her safe from falling or something. She like hits a rock, right? So we established that Gabrielle has lost the boot, which comes back in a cute way at the tail end. And pretty much right away, how do you write in stakes into an episode naturally? You just kind of have a guy run up to them and say, hey, the Persians are attacking Greece.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, who are you? Well, my name is Phidippides. And then I naturally wrote in my notes, Phidippides nuts, because I had to. And they're quickly introduced to another soldier who tells them, like, you guys got to go here, do this, that. My name is Dorian. I'm super cool.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to like me. Don't worry about the Persians. Where are you guys going to go, by the way? I'm just curious. This is me trying to play any, like, betrayal game. I'm good. Just so you know, I'm a good guy. What's your plan? You want to tell me? Xena quickly realizes that this guy is a Persian double agent trying to figure out where they're going. And in the escape into this barn that we were talking about, Gabrielle gets attacked and hit with a poison arrow, I believe, like through the back of her chest or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Pretty violent. I know you mentioned that there was kind of a squelchy noise when they were dealing with the poison arrow. Lots of sound effects.
When Xena's like pulling it out of her, there's some stuff.
Yeah, all that sort of goopus gumpus stuff.
Yeah.
And she's just taking care of her girlfriend. I wrote in my notes, like, do you really need to suggest that Gabrielle's going to die this episode? Because she says, like, well, it went really deep. It punctured my lung, which means I only have a couple hours. So, or else I'm dead. It's okay. Steaks are good. I like steaks. Good protein. And the meat of the episode is basically Xena saying, well, do I go and help out the Greeks and stop the Persians from attacking? Do I insert myself into the movie 300 and kick Xerxes into the hole? God, I wish that happened. Or do I protect my girlfriend and help her get an antidote? How did you feel about the stakes of this whole, like, save the Greeks or save my girlfriend setup?
I mean, as a viewer, you just have a hard time believing in the middle of season 3 that they're going to kill Gabrielle. So it's like, whatever. Those stakes are not really for me, I think is the point. They're for Xena. Because the purpose of the episode is we've had so many moments where Xena and Gabrielle have chosen other things over each other, have chosen what they perceive to be the greater good over their partner. And this is an episode where we need to show not only have they forgiven each other, but when faced with a situation where they see, oh, I could save you, or I could do something that I deem to be, more impactful, a greater good, something that I'm called to do, I'm still going to choose you. So, like, Gabrielle, she's not going to die, whatever. But I did believe that Xena thought she could.
Yeah, that's what matters.
And that's what matters, because in order for this forgiveness to be complete, there needs to be kind of this unconditional devotion to one another. Xena saying, I don't care, like, I'm tired of questing for my redemption and feeling like I owe something to the world. I love you, care about you. You're the source of my ability to do these things. I will choose you over anything. And I think that's a really beautiful sentiment that kind of like rounds out what we saw established in the previous episode and puts it to the test in a way that, again, feels contrived as a viewer, but I think Renee is selling it, Lucy's selling it, and you just need to believe that Xena believes it or that Gabrielle believes it.
Yeah.
You don't really need to believe that she's actually going to die for it to work.
No, the stakes are real enough. And also, we know history, right? It's not like actually the Greeks are going to lose this war because Xena didn't... Like, that wouldn't happen. So you're watching the episode and you're like, oh, I figure they're going to... Not hand wave, but they're going to solve the how do you do both. I think the way that they do it is actually very smart. And it's a good example of Xena, the series, being able to integrate itself into history without, like... doing the corny thing of like, and then Jesus and Mary were there, and blah, Mary and Joseph were there, because a ton of Persians eventually find the barn where Xena and Gabrielle are hiding out, and they booby trapped it. So there's this incredible like 10-minute sequence of Xena is fighting all the guys, Gabrielle's pushing tar onto them like hot oil or whatever, and basically a bunch of them leave, and she says, "Tell them that there's way more like me."
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant way to basically suggest that like she nudged the war in a positive direction as one person.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean
Yeah.
she won the war for them. Like she didn't win the Battle of Troy, but she made a significant dent and is a reason it went so partly the way that it did. And Gabrielle was there too. She helped. She kicked the oil, and she prevented her nightmare from happening. Because during this episode as well, Gabrielle is super anxious, very sick, feverish, sweaty. She has a sort of nightmare that the men attack, and one of them gets the jump on Xena and gets behind her and slices her neck open. She's like, I'm so scared that's going to happen. And from then on, you're like, okay, what? That's not going to happen. Again, we don't think that Xena Warrior Princess ends in the middle of season 3.
Right.
But we're worried about that. Gabrielle is worried that her protector isn't going to be enough to do this, that she's not helping her enough, whatever. So you have that stake again. And the rest of the episode is just like good cinematography and good fight choreo, honestly.
Yeah.
We both noted the great rack focus shot a la like Vertigo or something, which kind of felt like a cinematic flex where Xena sees all the men and it does the classic, if folks know the Alfred Hitchcock movie Vertigo popularized this, but tons of movies do it.
Yeah, it's technically not a rack focus. That's when
what is
the focus goes from something in the foreground to the background or vice versa. It's called a dolly zoom, which the way you accomplish it is by changing the zoom while moving the camera so that you keep the subject in the same position, but the depth of field looks different. And that's what Hitchcock did in Vertigo to show when the main character is experiencing vertigo, is he does the dolly zoom thing. And there's a great shot where there's a close-up of Xena. She's about to go into battle, and it goes from kind of a shallow depth of field where she's like, oh, here come the guys, and then this like much more heroic zoom closer into her, really deep depth of field, like she's gonna fight, which is really cool.
Yeah, because they were like, we don't need to, there's no more like storytelling directing that needs to happen. It's more like action and establishing tension directing. Thank you for clarifying that. I always forget the difference between those two. But dolly zoom, you may also recognize from Jaws, of course, we see the shark moment. A bunch of Scorsese loved it. Raging Bull and Goodfellas both feature dolly zooms. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, which we were talking about before the pod, has a dolly zoom in the first movie. And then, of course, Severance, the wonderful Apple TV show, TV Plus show, does it every time somebody goes between their work life and their real life. So they do it. Yeah, great show. Very concerned about how season 2 is going to go, considering they created it mostly during the strikes and during a time of intense production stress. Anyways, dolly zoom, we love to see it. So she's fighting all these dudes. They've laced the place with spikes and explosions and oil and all sorts of fun things. Before the big fight, though, Gabrielle's like, you should just let me die. Like, these guys, this war matters. Greece matters to you. Wouldn't it be better? You always told me to pick the greater good over the individual. You told me that. And that's when we get the great line from Xena, which is that you're my source, Gabrielle. When I reach down into myself to do things I'm not capable of, that's because of you. If a partner tells you this, in real life, listener, you got to get married. You're married now. You're already married. Congratulations. No, it's just it's a very tender, lovely thing. And it really does establish, like, Gabrielle doesn't always see herself as traditionally useful, but the mental support that she gives Xena and the emotional and, like, spiritual support she gives Xena is everything to her.
Right.
Which especially we see in the next episode where it's like, well, when Gabrielle is like, there's a distance between her and Xena defaults back to, I don't deserve redemption, So that stuff's all wonderful and good. The fights are so good. Do you have any notes on the big fight scene here?
Just a bunch of fun little moments. She's flipping and doing some kicks and stuff. There's my favorite moment. So is that Dorian coming back in this fight? And it's like, I'm going to kill you.
I think so.
Is he the one that she stabs with the arrow? Or is that some random guy?
I think that might be some random guy. That's a good question. I get all the grades.
I wasn't sure what happened to Dorian. He just kind of disappeared at one point.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he did.
Anyway, but my favorite bit was she's fighting some guy hand to hand, and then pew, an arrow flies towards her. She catches it without looking at it, and then sniffs the arrowhead, and
Yeah.
is like, "Oh yeah, poison! I'm gonna freaking stab you with this,"
And then she
which
says
is
like,
great.
I could let you die slowly, but I'm actually gonna be nice and I'm gonna kill you immediately. I'm not gonna.
She's like, "I'm gonna kill you faster, but with much more pain."
Yeah. Oh, badass.
And then part of her plan there is to poison the guy so that he then goes to drink the antidote to the poison so she can figure out what the antidote is. And in the midst of that, she says, "That's right, crawl, crawl for your stinking life."
Okay, Xena.
So good.
Okay,
So
sadistic.
good.
I like it.
And then, of course, like you said, go home. There are thousands more like me.
So
Very
cool.
fun. She also does a little fire breathing. That's Lucy's contractual fire breathing for this half of the season.
I thought I wrote that in my notes. Yes, she does in this. I'm glad she's keeping up that contract, the fire breathing contract.
Something that I also liked about the way that they did the fight scene is we get the Gabrielle prophecy, like you were saying earlier, where she sees bits of the fight scene and she sees Xena die.
Mm-hmm.
And they do this really smart thing with the fight scene where they'll show a piece from Gabrielle's dream, and you're like, "Oh my god, it's happening! Her dream's happening." And then something slightly different happens, so then there's more fight scene that we didn't see.
Mm-hmm.
Then they show us shots again from the dream, and you're like, "Oh, wait a minute! Oh, it's back to the dream." And then different things happen. Then they show shots from the dream again. So it's this way of building tension through the fight scene that is more subtle, and not so much about like what's actually happening in the fight, because Xena's doing fine. She does this all the time. She beats up Greg's. This is how we start every episode.
Mm-hmm.
But because they previewed and foreshadowed a couple moments that are very easily visually recognizable, they can then pepper those in to ratchet up the tension. So I thought that works really well and added to what was already in and of itself a pretty well choreographed fight scene, especially for how small the quarters were. Like, Xena doesn't move around a ton. She doesn't do a lot of her, like, I'm going to do 5 cartwheels and vault myself across the battlefield and throw my chakram off of 10 surfaces or whatever. She's in a very enclosed, tight space fighting these guys, but I think it works really well for a few reasons.
That's a very good analysis too. Yeah, that it's not a gymnasium, it's a barn. It's not built for a fight scene technically. It literally is, but it's not actually like a space that's built for one.
Yeah, they're like all on top of each other in this fight.
Speaking of which,
pretty well.
I had this in stray notes, but I'm just gonna bring it up now since we're nearing the tail here. There's a part where she jumps off of a couple things to like bounce between guys. They full on used the Super Mario World bouncing noise, like the
awesome,
repeatedly, like 4 or 5 times, and I was like,
amazing.
Is that allowed? I don't even know if Mario invented it, but it's from Mario. So I know it as the Super Mario World, like when you I think jump with a spring or something. But anyways, that was a fun little audio design. Audio design is always one of my favorite things on Xena. It's just so loud and cartoony, and even when the show gets really dark and serious, they always remember that you need impact sounds, you need squelching sounds, you need violent sounds, etc. Like, just really good.
Yeah.
So as we hit the tail, as we both mentioned, Xena defeats enough of these guys and says there's more of us, so presumably she did help the Greeks win this war. Gabrielle says, you still owe me some boots. I still want those boots, Xena, as she has drank the antidote and is going to be just fine. And as the credits tell us, Gabrielle's ankle was harmed during the production of this motion picture. Simple. Nothing to discuss on that one. Just they did it right.
There you go. Good information.
What do you got for stray notes on this one, though?
Let's see. I enjoyed Gabrielle practicing flips at the beginning of the episode. That's a nice way to show us that we're back to normal.
Totally.
That we're working together again. Fun little sketch. Yeah, there's a guy running for marathon. He's panting. He's running a marathon. I couldn't get it out of my head when they were talking about the poison arrow, how funny it would be if it was a poisson arrow instead.
Bruh.
Yeah, that's just funny.
Like a fish arrow?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
there's an exchange at one point. Gabrielle says, "I do have a last request." Xena says, "Then tell it to me years from now when we're old and gray." And then Gabrielle's like, "Haha, that's funny. Anyway, I'm dying and I have a last request." That's a good little exchange.
Excellent.
The part that affected me the most is there's a moment in Gabrielle's feverishness where she's asking Xena to take her with her on the adventure, as if it's like episode 1 of the show. And Gabrielle's like, "Please, I have the gift of prophecy. I want to see the world. I want to leave, my hometown." And that really got to me.
Yeah.
And made me feel like, oh God, I hope Gabrielle doesn't die. So I thought Renee really delivered that moment pretty well. Xena has this like old Yeller scene with Argo.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. Leave. But I
just
didn't
for
think that was
safety.
necessary.
Just so we know he's
she
safe.
also goes and finds Argo next episode, and it's fine.
Yeah, it was a weird. Yeah. I always find the way that they handle Argo to be interesting, because like, yeah, if you wanted to rules lawyer this episode, then they should tell Argo to leave, because there's a ton of guys here, and at any moment one of them could be like, "That's Xena's horse, kill it," and then we would have lost Argo, which is so sad. So it's great that they justified that, but then for it to come back next episode, I was like, what? This is the weirdest thing to have continuity about. Yeah, it's like when you play like Red Dead Redemption and you finish a mission and you're like, "Where's my horse? Where did I
gotta go retrace my steps."
What? Yeah.
Those are my notes though.
Amazing. Pretty straightforward episode. I just want to reiterate, I think this is one that we will appreciate more when looking at the broad picture of season 3 and when reflecting on the show, because it's like, it adds texture, it reminds us where we're at, it resets the board a little bit, and it's just fun. It's really good and fun, and I'm glad this episode exists.
Yep.
I can't complain about it.
Agreed. This is the Picard wrestling his brother in the fields of...
Oh God, family? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're right. Oh my God, one of my favorite episodes of TNG. Beautiful Anonymous, one of my favorite podcasts. The latest episode is called "Let's Just Talk About TNG," because he had a caller who just wanted to talk with Chris about let's talk about Star Trek, but they just talk about TNG the whole time. Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet, but I need to. Anyways, cool. Well, when we come back after the break, you, the listener, will discover why I asked Magellan if he has read my notes, and we will get into our wonderful discussion of Forgiven.
Bye.
Wait, I don't actually know if it's wonderful. What if it's bad? It's our discussion. It'll probably be wonderful. Oh.
We'll find out. Hey, welcome back to Xena Warrior Chatzums. I'm Magellan, and that's Alan. Hey, Alan.
Hey. Gregory. John and I did a bit where we barked at each other for like a minute straight between halves, and it really energized me.
And we're going to energize you all with a discussion of another episode of Xena Warrior Princess. That's right, Season 3, Episode 14, Forgiven. It was written by R.J. Stewart, directed by Garth Maxwell. It aired on February 16th, 1998. Alan, what happened in Forgiven?
For the video listener, I was attempting to do something like in the movie Whiplash, where I tap out the beat to what Magellan's saying.
Not my tempo.
No. Shit, not my tempo. Shit. In this episode, when the urn of Apollo is stolen from his temple, Xena and Gabrielle go after it with the dubious help of one Tara, a gang girl. Oh, that's a terrible phrase. Street rat, Simpson. What does he say in Aladdin? That. A gang girl who wants to replace Gabrielle as Xena's sidekick. Yeah. So, Magellan, it's time to open up the box and reveal that I watched half of this episode with my father, who, if listeners don't know, is a Syrian immigrant who has a very unique perspective on media and television. I don't watch a lot of shows with him because I'm not always at my parents' house when I watch Xena or when I watch Chatz stuff, but I was using the family room TV to watch, and he came downstairs, and I was like, "Oh, I can change it," and he was like, "No, like I'll watch. What are you watching?" I was like, "Oh, I'm watching, I'm watching Xena." Xena, and he sees them. I think I just said that I'm watching Xena. He didn't really pick up on it, and then somebody in the show says Xena, and he goes, Xena, hey, Xena. So I will always always think of my dad saying Xena, like, which is like a more of a Middle Eastern name, because there's a scene early on in the episode, or actually partway through, where Xena's walking through the woods and there's like some vague Arabic music that's clearly like from a sound library. The way my dad's eyes lit up, Michelle, and he goes, "Wait, I know this song." And he starts
that's awesome.
He starts singing the whole song. I'm like, what the fuck? Father,
That's awesome.
They clearly pulled this from some random ass sound library of like vaguely ethnic music. It's not. He's like, no, that's a song. I know this song. And he starts singing it. And I'm like, Dad. But no, he genuinely liked the episode. A lot of his comments were, this isn't super realistic. Like,
right.
You know, in the middle of like a Tara and Gabrielle fights him, he's like, he basically said in Arabic, he's like, you can do anything you want on TV. And then he also had a couple comments about how Gabrielle and Tara were very young. He was like, these girls are younger than I would have expected on a show like this. And I was like, yeah, that is the point. I think they're played by older actresses playing young. Like, I think Gabrielle's probably supposed to be about 18 or 19, and Tara's clearly like 15 tops, you know?
Right.
He thought that was interesting because he was like, this woman's clearly an adult, referring to the gorgeous adult woman, Lucy Lawless. So those were his main takes, but I'll if I remember anything else, I'll bring it up as we discuss Forgiven, which was a fascinating episode of television. Michelle, what did you think about Forgiven?
I want you to watch Xena with your dad all the time. I need that perspective.
Any opportunity I can have to get his perspective on it, yeah, I certainly will. It's hard. Like, he just, you know, when I wonder, like, why is my attention span so bad? And then I talk to my parents, and they're both like, you know, just easily distracted on their phones all the time. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on. So that's the main reason I don't always do it. But anyways, I'll try.
I thought this episode again was a charming, solid, simple Xena plot. You know, I really didn't write down a lot of notes because it was pretty straightforward across the board. You know, there's a young upstart who wants to join us. Gabrielle is like, I don't trust this girl. She'd beat me up. And Xena's like, she kind of reminds me of me. And
I would have beaten you up if I was her age and knew you.
Right. Over the course of the episode, Gabrielle warms up to her. It has a whole arc about empathizing with people. And, you know, that's nice. And it's about the themes of Xena. It's about redemption and forgiveness. And interestingly, I think plays a crucial role in shifting the focus of that theme in season 3, because, you know, in season 1 it was like, okay, what do I need to do to cancel out the bad things I've done, essentially. Season 2 is kind of more about paying it forward and mentoring others, the trials and tribulations of that. And I think where this episode takes it is like, well, you've done lots of good things. Can you now forgive yourself? Is that enough for you? Which is kind of where this episode pushes us. So in and of itself, I don't think that this episode is super revelatory or, again, doing novel things, but it's nudging in the aftermath of Bittersweet and the mistakes that our characters made in the first half of the season, in the aftermath of them forgiving each other. Now it's kind of reorienting us to say, okay, Gabrielle loves Xena unconditionally. Xena loves Gabrielle unconditionally. Do these characters forgive and love themselves for the things that they've done? And let's follow that for the second half of season 3. So it's good. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I liked it. That is a fascinating angle to take from here, is that, yeah, when you learn to love other people, you know, a lot of times you're like, well, I still have this hatred and this resentment, and they aim it inwards. Both of them do, right? Because Gabrielle is like, well, maybe I don't deserve this. Maybe Tara is just better at this than I am, and that's where that jealousy comes from. I totally understand it. And Xena is like, well, you know, I've done enough bad stuff. All this whole thing about the urn of Apollo and forgiveness and the magic of faith and forgiveness, like, I don't think that applies to people like me, because look at Tara. She's tragic. And, you know, I have it on good authority that we're going to see Tara again at some point. But beyond that, I don't know what her contact is going to be. I think she fits it in a cool role in Xena and Gabrielle's story. And this is a really good time to introduce her so that when she does come back, she can kind of complicate things a little bit more and be a little bit messier than just, hey, I want to replace your girlfriend, which is basically what she says in the first scene.
Because she can kind of shout the less skillful, less wise and developed thoughts that are still at the core of how Xena and Gabrielle are acting or thinking about themselves, but they're too mature to say it in quite the way that Tara does. When both of them are really nice to her, and then she's like, what the hell? Why are you being so nice? You're such suckers. Like, I've done bad things and I don't deserve this. It's her vocalizing
what they're thinking.
A belief that they have about themselves that they're not going to say in those terms. But that is kind of the struggle at this point in their journey is, okay, you are receiving the forgiveness. You need to decide that you're worthy of it in order for it to really take root within you. And I like that the whole Urn of Apollo thing, in some ways, the episode introduces it to us as this strange, cultish, like, meanwhile, on the surface of the sun, it's exploding and everybody's worshiping Apollo, and now we're drinking from his water or something. So it's like kind of weird and mystical in that way. But the end of the episode just recontextualizes it as it can just be this decision to accept the forgiveness because you think that you can or you should have it. And so Tara plays that role, like you're saying, of making certain things a little bit more obvious, that we can have her be messier than our two main characters who can't quite be messy in exactly the same ways because they're just adults. And I think that's useful. It serves an important purpose here.
Well said. I guess getting into this intro, I was honestly pretty impressed with it. How this episode starts, because we have talked about how, like, this season hasn't done a ton of, like, Xena and Gabrielle fight a bunch of Greg's intros for a while. That's, like, been what the show did for its first 2 seasons, and they keep trying new things with the intros. So specifically, this one is sort of a origin story of the Urn of Apollo, where, as you said, we have a bunch of people in white cloaks worshiping the sun, praying to the sun, and then being horribly incinerated by it. And in their prayer, those images are immortalized in the urn. And it's this wonderful bit of, like, directing where the poses that they're in, we zoom out of, and that becomes what the urn looks like. I thought this was really smart. You know, it's continuing our theme of storytelling and how myths are built. And it's like, yeah, the Apollo story is, like, kind of brutal and, like, tragic. And also this theme of forgiveness is going to come up a lot. This theme of absolution. The sun burns the way that it provides absolution.
Yeah, and I think it evokes a kind of mysticism or religiosity that feels true to what ancient peoples might have experienced, where it's not that, you know, Ares is coming down with his mutton chops and saying, hey, work for me, I'm Ares.
Yeah.
This belief in, like, the gods instead comes from observing the awesome power of the natural world and being like, there is a fucking ball of fire in the sky. That's scary. Right. If you stare at it, it hurts your eyes. What the heck is up with that? It must be some kind of god. And so this is a surprisingly visually poetic way to communicate to you, you know, what a belief in Apollo must have felt like, without there being some, like, studly actor who is like, Xena, they took my urn. What the heck?
Yeah.
Help me out, Xena.
Right. What did it look like before we had people, the gods, to point to and blame for all these things?
Yeah. And it because part of Tara's plot is that she's a bit of a skeptic of, she says, like, oh, those, you know, stupid people believe in this thing.
Yeah.
And I think it would have undermined, like, I have trouble sometimes when there are skeptic characters in genre fiction like this, where the thing that they're skeptical of is, like, embodied in the show. So if some dude had showed up as Apollo and was like, it's me, Apollo, and then Tara's like, whatever, the gods, like, I don't believe in all that mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
But instead, it's not really about a belief in Apollo. It's about a belief in the urn and the things that the urn can do and what it means to drink from it. So it's cool that the intro also centers like this relic, and this tool of worship, as opposed to the sun or the god of the sun himself. So I like that because it's important to the skepticism that Tara experiences and eventually leaves behind.
Yeah, my dad actually had some brief thoughts on that whole thing, because there's a couple sequences, and there's the big one at the end where, you know, the priest does the whole line that he says, you know, your sins are forgiven, like, be gone and do good in the world. And my dad repeated it in Arabic because it's also a line from a traditional like Christian service. And so I didn't have the opportunity to explain to him, like, this isn't Christianity because it didn't exist in the way we think of it yet. But I'm sure in developing Christian religious practices, they were like also incorporating things like this, like absolution, forgiveness, prayer, belief in the spiritual power of water. All that stuff is like in Christianity, just not yet in the timeline of the episode.
Right.
So he was like, "Oh my God, that's so cool," and I was like, "Yeah, it's that, but it's also not the thing you're thinking of."
Yeah.
There's this funny moment early on too, where, you know, all the different people are getting their little water blessing, and then there's these two guys in like the traditional Xena warlord outfits, and you're like, "Wow, so subtle and wonderful. Even warlords can be." Oh, never mind. No, they're actually just evil. They're not even seeking absolution. They steal the urn. They put a knife up to the priest's neck. Oh my God, that's ours now. And these become our villains of the episode. They work for, is it, the crew has like a name? I want to say the Red Fox Diaries.
The Red River Gang or something?
I think that's
the Red something.
Control F red on the summary. Sake red. Yep, that's what I meant. Can't find it right now. The Red Valley Gang. Bingo. The Red Valley Gang. So they're members of the Red Valley Gang, which we learn later. Spoiler alert, Tara was also a part of before this episode and during this episode. And she's a little bit feral. I love this design as Tara is introduced, right away attacking Gabrielle in the camp. I say feral just because like that's the thing they're going for, almost like somebody who isn't generally used to polite society, so her hair is all over the place and she like looks unkempt, but she's really cool. Tara, by the way, is played by Shiri Appleby, who listeners and fans of 90s television may recognize from Roswell. She's the lead character on Roswell, which is pretty cool and weird to think that you were doing Xena as Tara one day and then you're like a teenage girl on a modern day sci-fi show the next day. And she's like, "I'm better than Gabrielle at this. I'm here to replace her." That's our cold opener stinger. Replace her? Huh? That's not going to work out. But right away, Xena has an important role in this episode, that she has to basically believe in Tara, because it's very easy as the listener or as the viewer to say like, who the heck is this person? They're not going to fit into the dynamic well. And instead of being like, no, they actually fit perfectly into the dynamic, it's more that Xena is like, she deserves a chance to fit into a dynamic. If it's not ours,
right,
it's someone's. And so she kind of gives her a lot of grace, which Gabrielle is not fond of. And is basically like, I'm going to help you guys out finding this urn. They took it. I know who has it. I'm your useful resource. They do a bunch of sneaking around, do a bunch of fighting stuff. The first evidence that something is weird is that she like fake betrays Xena in the middle of the night. They sneak into the camp. She goes up first and says, "Hey, there's actually a girl over there. Mama, a girl behind you. There's a woman in those bushes." And that's another, like, there's a lot of like commercial stingers in this one. A lot of them also involve people pointing swords at the camera. I noted that there were more than at least 2 cuts to commercial where 5 people point their swords at the camera, like it's a big dramatic twist. She's not betraying Xena here, though. She's just like, yeah, she's gonna beat you up, and they do some fighting. It's a double cross. I noted that at first I didn't really appreciate Gabrielle's jealousy here, But as we talked about in part 1, I think just in the echo of like Bittersweet and everything that happened, that like it makes sense that she's feeling really raw about her relationship with Xena. Like it could collapse at any moment. Another thing I noted about Tara, just as my interest in her, was that so many people in the world of Xena come from dissolved families or who are orphans, which it really does go to show the cost of this like warlord culture. Is, you know, when you attack and pillage different villages, what happens is you create a Callisto every day, you create a Tara every day, and it's just, I think it's really fascinating that this is a world full of people who are disenfranchised like that. This is when I started to notice, this is at the point where my dad came in to watch the episode, and I kept writing, I'm so anxious something's gonna happen. Is this gonna get weirdly horny? Like, what's going on?
Never know.
Thankfully not too bad. He came in during a scene where Gabrielle and Tara are fighting with sticks. I can fight with sticks. Oh, you want to fight with sticks? Lots of like, it's very masculine actually, the way that they're both like, oh bro, you want to fight? I'll fight you. And they just kind of like sort of one up each other. Xena clearly gets a kick out of this and is like almost enjoying watching the girls fight a little bit. How did you interpret that?
I mean, I think a lot of Xena's enjoyment in this episode comes from she has the moral high ground over Gabrielle, which is not usually the case. Like Gabrielle's usually the person who's quicker to trust an outside figure, and Xena's the one who's skeptical. So there's a bit of a reversal here, which I didn't fully believe. I mean, they do a pretty good job of being like, well, she really aggressively attacked Gabrielle, so Gabrielle's not going to be a big fan.
No.
But I think that switch is important because it so often the Xena Gabrielle relationship is about like, oh, Gabrielle, you taught me so much. You're so good. I learned so much from you. And Gabrielle's like, Xena, you taught me how to do a flip. And I like I like when Xena's able to pass wisdom back to Gabrielle or kind of show her moments where she's not living up to her own values. And I think Xena kind of has a bit of fun in this episode socially engineering moments where Gabrielle and Tara have time alone together and come to understand each other better. Because also part of it is Xena's like projecting herself onto Tara. So I think for her, there's some stakes here of, I want to see my partner like take care of a younger version of me. And when I see that happen, oh, that feels pretty good.
Totally.
But yeah, I really appreciated Xena's like the lesson that she's trying to impart in this episode, which is the idea that like people don't, we're thinking backwards if we think that somebody has to demonstrate worthiness in order to receive our grace. Rather, it is our grace that makes people worthy.
Exactly.
And so if you're going to forgive someone, believe in them, you're going to do them the most service by doing that before they've earned it.
Right.
Because it's that belief that like makes people be their best selves, which is a really beautiful thing for Xena to have learned about what it means to be good. Like you don't become good through your deeds and then people treat you better. We just need to live in a world where we expect the best from each other, and then the world will be better. And that's beautiful. And I wish Xena could apply that to herself, which we see at the end of the episode she has a hard time doing. But that's part of what makes that all the more powerful and all the more bittersweet, that she can impart that on others but not apply it to herself. So I like that a lot.
That's such a good point. And how Gabrielle is sort of like, well, she hasn't proved that she's good. And that Tara herself is like, well, I don't think I'm good. I think I'm inherently not good. And no amount of good I do will fix me. I'm really, really bad. She has this tragic scene here towards the back third where she's like, Xena, I'm not worth bringing back. You guys are like doing your own thing. You're talking about good and evil, and I'm just not part of it. I was abandoned as a kid. I deserved it. I feel like she just aims that hatred towards herself. And what you're saying is like, you need to be good to other people for the sake of doing it, not so that you can receive absolution and to be reset, a la the Urn of Apollo. The Urn of Apollo allows you, and that's what he says in the, if we're really going to talk about spirituality here for a sec, that's what he says in the little phrase when he blesses your forehead. He's like, now go and do good. I'm giving you the opportunity to do good. I'm not telling you you're clean. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, because a big part of it is also like, if you go out and do bad stuff, then
this doesn't work.
Didn't do anything for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
this
they
is
even
just
say
about. Yeah, I think he says it towards the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
This is just about whatever's weighing you down or following you around, like that shame. It's not serving you, and it's keeping you from doing good things. So we're gonna clear the slate because you have the desire and the capacity within yourself to be a good person. You just need to let go of this idea that the past is preventing you from doing that, which is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I think part of also what Xena's driving towards here and what she says to Gabrielle is like, hey, she reminds me of myself. I was also kind of rough and tumble with the local boys, like being a street tough and beating people up and taking things. And I wish that somebody had like intervened with me and shown me a different way of thinking about myself earlier, so that I could have withstood the tragedy that would come in my life.
Right.
So part of what Xena's saying is also, it's not just about forgiveness, but it's also about building within oneself the capacity to come across things in life that are like greater than you can withstand, or that challenge your image of yourself or your image of the world, that make you want to be cruel and vengeful. But because people believed in you, you can draw on that belief in those moments and not like go down the wrong path. So I think that's a really powerful thing too that Xena's trying to express, is like, it's partly about forgiveness, but it's also like, Gabrielle, we're not just gonna be nice to people who deserve it. We're gonna speak this goodness into everybody so that that can like serve them later. And I think that that's really a really powerful idea as well.
You did a really good job of finding the sort of like spiritual caramel center in this episode, I feel. Give you your flowers for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very thought provoking. You know, even if on the surface the episode is just like, there's a girl who's jealous and she fights Gabrielle until she realizes it's not worth fighting for, and it's better to try to be a good person. There's still a lot underneath. The best scene of the episode comes up here next. This incredible game of theater charades, of ancient Greek charades.
So good.
This was where I was like, looking at my dad, like, what do you think about this? And he got all of it. Like, he fully was like, this is so funny, and I get the joke, and I think it's really clever.
Great.
It's like,
that's great.
It doesn't require words, because basically Xena, Gabrielle, and Tara are up in the middle of the night. They can't sleep. They've been, anxious about stuff. And Gabrielle's doing her storytelling thing. She's playing charades for them, specifically for like obscure ancient Greek theater. And she's doing visual representations of them and telling them, like, don't just guess, like, use the clues I'm giving you. And the first one she gives them is Iphigenia and Aeolus, which, like, no one has heard of. And in the episode, they're like, no one's heard of that. Like, what are you referencing? And then quickly she does the birth of Athena, which is like a painting and a story that they probably are all familiar from. Like, Athena coming out of the forehead of Zeus. And they get that one immediately, and you're like,
well, that's the one that Tara does.
I'm sorry, yes, that's what it is. Tara does that. Yeah, that's like a classic. That's like, it's been immortalized in painting and art, and everybody knows that one. I could have watched them do this for an hour. I was like, I don't even need to know the answers. The fact that they're doing it is just really charming, and it lets me Googling a lot of different plays too. I was like, oh, I'm learning about Iphigenia. So super duper clever, just like nonverbal charades, storytelling stuff. And then where do we go from there? We have
and then they all are like, oh, Tara's like, thanks for teaching me that game, Gabrielle. Good night, Gabrielle. Good night, Xena. And everyone's saying good night
to each other.
She's like, good night, Argo. Oh, it's so sweet. Such a sweet moment.
I love Argo's role in the show. But plot twist, Tara wakes up in the middle of the night to find her secret boyfriend, one of the guys who stole the urn. She kisses him and says the plan's going as expected. Uh-oh. You're the one who needs to earn her forgiveness, Miss Tara. That's no good. So we start to understand that she's actually been working with this gang, and she's in there and part of it to get Xena off the trail and take the urn for themselves. And once they end up in these like catacombs or whatever, where the climax happens, we get this season's version of the baby being tossed in the air, where the warlords have the urn, and then Xena and Tara and Gabrielle take the urn, because Tara very quickly is like, even without the influence of Xena directly in front of her, he's like, I don't think we should keep this. I think we should give it to the priest. People deserve forgiveness, even if this makes us a little money. So he's like, I'm going to kill you. Xena helps her. And then, we're throwing the urn up and down, up and up. Woo, woo. Toss it, punch a guy, toss it. Oh, Tara. Everyone catches it. I love this. It basically feels like the baby scene again. Just something absurd about it. I think the baby scene to me was funnier, though, just because, you're less likely to break a baby, but it's something more scary about throwing a baby around. An urn's like, whatever. It's a heavy thing. Yeah. That's not a human life that if you drop it. So this felt a lot more like lighthearted than like actually heart in my chest for some of that scene. It's important for people to believe in things, and they get the urn back. They beat the guys. Tara's like, screw these guys. I'm going to go be good. Another person in the world that Xena influences to be a better person.
Yeah. And Tara says to Micah, right? Mika?
I think so.
Something like that. She essentially says, well, I don't want to do this. Xena believed in me and thinks that I'm better than this. I don't want to do this, which is really great. And I think there's also kind of subtler aspect of this when Tara is opening up to Xena and Gabrielle, and she's talking about her mom dying, which she says this heartbreaking thing when she was watching her mom get buried. Mom, you better get up now. The men are throwing dirt on you. Awful. Made me so sad. And then I think then she describes her father was abusive to her in the wake of that.
Or he didn't necessarily blame her, but became very aggressive and drank a lot, and
and so there's also this thread of like, she lost her mother, she lost a older woman that she could connect with and who could mentor her, and developed these unhealthy relationships with the men in her life. And then we've got this shitty dude who's like, do the stuff I tell you to do. Oh, what the fuck, I'm gonna kill you. And so not only is it kind of about forgiveness for herself, but also Xena and Gabrielle's influence is what allows her to like break out of that cycle and out of those relationships in her life.
Exactly.
And I think that that's a really important part of this too.
No more riffraff, street rat, scoundrel. Take that. I gotta rewatch Aladdin, dude. That used to be my favorite Disney movie. Fun fact. It's been a while since I've seen it. I'm excited to see Tara again. That's really my last big note. And then also, this final scene, incredible. By the way, we go back to the church. We bring the urn back, or the temple rather. Tara gets the blessing, go out and do good in the world. Gabrielle gets the blessing, go out and do good. Xena's standing in the corner with the sun, which I did not pick up on the symbolism of this, but the sun, Apollo's light, blasting on her, and she's looking at them, and Gabrielle says, "Doesn't she want to be forgiven?" Just kind of looks at it. I don't know yet. I don't think I'm ready for it. Sad.
Yeah.
I express emotions by verbalizing them loudly, listener. Do you have any stray notes on Forgiven?
Let's see. Tara's hair was fun.
Janis Joplin, I think you said in your notes.
The only moment where I was annoyed with the sound effect people is when Gabrielle and Tara are fighting in the bar or whatever. They just throw in some cat sound effects. Meow. Like, meow. Come on. It's dumb. Oh, it's cat fight. Meow. Stupid. Yeah, I loved all the moments where Tara's like, wow, you're being so nice to me. what the heck? You're such suckers. That feels like a very teenager thing.
You're suckers.
And then the only other note I had was just, I love that not only are they playing charades and the stories that they're depicting, reveal kind of their own perspectives on themselves or the stories that they tell that they want to make external. And also it's cute and fun and tender, but also canonically Gabrielle is inventing charades and is testing it out. And Xena's like, I don't think this game's gonna catch on. I just love all the, we don't need this, but all the moments where it's like Xena just invented the kite or Gabrielle just invented charades.
It's when you go
it's always fun.
When you go to a play test at PAX and you're like, this game's fascinating, how has no one made this already? You just play it a bunch, you're like, oh, this is very good.
Yeah. But yeah, those are my notes.
I just learned 2 pieces of trivia about the episode. Number 1, the original casting pick for Tara was going to be Selma Blair, who was in the Hellboy movies and a bunch of other stuff in the 90s. And then also the final shot of Xena in the church is a reference to The Searchers, a John Wayne movie from the 50s that also features him standing in front of the sun in a doorway for different reasons. Cowboy movie. I used to be a big Western girl. I don't really like Westerns anymore, but I might watch The Searchers at some point. Maybe. That's what I have for that. I feel like sorry, the credits thing. No street talking, catfighting, barroom brawling, juvenile delinquents were harmed during the production of this motion picture. Street talking, catfighting, barroom brawling, juvenile delinquents. And a partridge in a pear tree. Ooh. We should rewatch the Solstice episode. I feel like this is the time for it.
Solstice. Oh yeah, where Santa Claus is in it?
Yeah. Might be the time. Anyways, speaking of watching things, Magellan, can you tell us what we're watching next time on Chatz?
I sure can. Next time on Xena Warrior Chatz, we are watching the next 2 episodes of Season 3 of Xena Warrior Princess. They are episodes 15 and 16 of Season 3. First, Season 3, Episode 15, King Khan. Xena and Gabrielle join forces with a pair of con men to save Joxer's life when a vengeful casino owner puts a hit out on him.
What? Sick!
Nice.
Xena Casino, baby.
Nice. And then Season 3, Episode 16, When in Rome. Efforts to engage in a prisoner exchange involving a Gaul warrior for a member of the Roman hierarchy are hindered by an uncooperative Caesar.
Carl?
Carl's back.
Oh my god. I just read one sentence out of the summary on the wiki that said, meanwhile in Syria. What's going on? Let's go.
Nice.
Let's freaking go, y'all. That's exciting. Wow.
Amazing.
Xena Warrior Princess is a real show that exists. I think next week's gonna be very fun. Amazing. I hope y'all enjoyed the talk. It's time to hear about us. John, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on another podcast that I do with my friend Justin called Super Smash Echoes, where we play video games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise. Super Smash Echoes, check it out. You can also read some of my writing on notthatmagellan.substack.com and follow me on Bluesky, notthatmagellan.bsky.social. What about you?
You can follow me on Bluesky at Ibrahim, AIBRAHIM. You can also hear me on a few Scanline Media podcasts, mainly the Creature Quorum, where we're doing the Unova Tourism Committee, and my friend Six and I are playing through Pokemon Black and White 2. You can also hear me on the Garnet Wager, where my friend Six and I and our friend Nick are watching the Korean game show Devil's Plan and telling a story along the way. In addition, you can hear me every other month on Talking Marketing at amaboston.org. Magellan, this being an odd episode means it's time for you to do the plug zone, please.
Alrighty, I would love to do that. You can get in touch with the show in a few different ways. You can email us at chatzpod@gmail.com with questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, requests to be on the show. We are on Bluesky at chatzpod.bsky.social and on YouTube, Chatz Television Podcast on YouTube, where you can find video versions of our podcast discussions. And sometimes, if we do a stream, we'll put the archive on there. Like last month, we streamed City of Heroes for the Patreon. That was a lot of fun. That's on there. So, subscribe and check us out on YouTube. You can also rate us, review us wherever you listen to the podcast, however you get us in your feeds. You know how to engage with things on the internet in ways that are helpful. So please consider doing that. And then if you want to use your dollars to support the show, patreon.com/chatzpod is the way to do it. $1 a month gets you onto the Discord, where we talk about all sorts of stuff related to shows we've watched, shows we haven't watched, but we like, other forms of media. It's a fun time to chat about things in the Chatz Discord. $3 a month and up gets you twice monthly bonus content. One of those every month is picked by us. So the month of December, every year we do a pilot of a Star Trek TV series as our holiday tradition. This year it's time for us to pilot Star Trek Discovery over there and discuss that first episode. We also once a month have an episode selected by from patron suggestions that we've put on a wheel and spun to figure that out. Our last option from this year's wheel was to do a commentary of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So if you want to revisit that film for its 25-year anniversary, which happened a few months ago, but we're still in the year of it before the year concludes, check that out on the Patreon. And then we are refreshing that wheel for 2025. We're going to fill it with brand new suggestions and spin our way through it next year, which will be a lot of fun. $5 a month and up gets you thanked right here at the end of every episode of the show. So thank you to, as always, Stefan, Six, Noel, Nick of the Brothers at Infinite War, my mom, May Louise, Marcus, Lee, Kyrie, Justin, Jen, Felicia, Emrys, Emily, Arthur, and Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. I love you so much. Thank you, folks, for supporting this show. Also, thank you to Camilla at Camillastrator for our podcast art. Now it's time, Alan, for our Chatzums. Every week, we like to end with a little suggestion of things that people can snack on between now and next time. What are your Chatzums for this week?
I have 2 Chatzums for folks. A new artist that I've been getting into mainly via YouTube, and a lot of her feature work is the new this up and coming rapper Doechii, Doechii. She's a Florida-based rapper who has collaborated with people like Tyler the Creator and Kodak Black. I actually first heard her on the song Balloon on Tyler the Creator's new album, and I was like, whoa, you are so good at rapping. It's amazing. And I heard a lot of hype about some of her live performances, specifically on the Colbert Show, on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. I highly, highly recommend starting to get into her music with that. And then also checking out her Tiny Desk, which is one of the best Tiny Desks I've seen in a long time. I don't want to say too much about like why, but other than she has a very unique style. I'd say there's a little bit of jazz influence in there, a little bit of like slam poetry influence, and very creative, very, very out there, but also very accessible and like fun to listen to. I don't think she has a full-length album out yet, but I'm sure you will hear her name in 2025 in some big ways. So highly, highly recommend checking out Doechii, starting with the Colbert performance and her Tiny Desk. And then I've also been listening to a new podcast. This doesn't happen that often because I have a very, very tightly curated list of pods I listen to. But I finally, after watching Wicked, decided to check out Las Culturistas, which is Bowen Yang and, there it is, Matt Rogers. Both artists, both entertainers, both queer men who have been doing this podcast for a while now, and I've heard good things about it. I've heard it from friends and other podcasters. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It's another like people talking, hanging out show, and it's Hollywood type. So am I really gonna like it? I've noticed after a couple weeks of listening to it that not only has it like made it's like something to look forward to every week, but it's filling a hole that a lot of other shows I used to listen to don't no longer fill. So Majon and I used to talk a lot about Fake Doctors, Real Friends, the Scrubs Rewatch pod that was big during the pandemic. And the fall off of that being mainly due to the fact that the host, mainly Zach Braff, is like kind of annoying. And what if there was a version of Fake Doctors where neither of them was annoying and there was no show for them to watch and they just kind of like, it was just the hanging out talking parts. So that's what I really like about it. I also think they have really cool perspective and their friendship is really like wonderful and loving. And it's just fun to hear two people who are very talented in their field of both being funny and being entertainers. Matt Rogers is primarily a singer. And Bowen Yang obviously writes on and is on SNL. So you get cool perspective on their careers and lives. And it's just a really good pod. I don't know what to say. You've probably already listened to it. You already know about it. But yeah, I'm on the Las Culturistas train. Magellan, darling, sweetheart, what do you got?
That's fun about you listening to Las Culturistas. I'll have to let Bo and Yang know the next time I see him on the subway.
Did you see him on the subway at some point?
Yeah, one time.
That's fucked up. Time. Well, great.
Yeah, it was. Okay, yeah, I got 2 Chatzums for you. You ever play poker?
Yeah.
You ever played poker before?
Yeah.
I got 2 ways you could play poker that are different. One of them, people are probably familiar with. It's the game Balatro. I'm late to the party on Balatro. It was on all the video game things in February and then was ported to mobile phones in September. But when I was at PAX Unplugged, you were playing it, Jim was playing it, and then you got my friend Carson playing it. And then I was like, wait, I want to play it. And then I forgot that I wanted to play it because they didn't have any distilled water in Philadelphia. So I wasn't using my CPAP machine. So I was underslept for 3 days. And my short-term memory was absolutely shot. But then when I got home and I was gassing myself with that good sleep oxygen, I remembered, oh yeah, I wanted to play that game. And I've been playing it all day, every day. Heck, what a fun thing. It's a roguelike deck builder where you build a deck of typical playing cards, like a 52 card deck of cards. And you, every round, are essentially trying to lay down poker hands. But in between rounds, you can purchase power-ups that make your different hands more powerful, or you can get joker cards that add special powers or effects and things like that. And then as you're going through, you're facing... you're not really like playing against anything, but you're facing opponents who are applying negative effects to your rounds that might make it more difficult. You have to reach a higher and higher money value to be successful. So it's just one of those games that's so good and simple but deep that you're like, how has nobody thought about roguelike deck builder with playing cards before? But now it's here and it's awesome. Yeah. So I really enjoy Balatro. It's great on the phone.
Yeah, it's so simple and easy to get into and out of. I love the Joker format. You can buy different Jokers between rounds, and you can get some truly, truly devastating combo Jokers. I remember my best run, I had basically made it so getting a straight was easier, and that would add to your multiplier, and then another Joker that made it so every time you got a straight, it doubled the multiplier. And those two together were just like, nice. Oh, it's so satisfying. Yeah. Eventually, I got so far with that, but the game just, it's about beating the acceleration of the blinds. The blinds are the sort of rounds that you play.
Right.
And if the blinds go faster, then you're getting better, then you can't beat it. But yeah, you always get a little closer every time.
Yeah. Just won Best Independent Game at the Game Awards. So
yes. Yeah. It was up for Game of the Year, which a lot of people were like, how is a card game up for Game of the Year? The answer is it's very good.
What one Game of the Year? I'm looking. Astrobot. Never heard of it.
Oh my god! Well, you don't have a PlayStation, but that's fine.
Is this like the tech demo on the PS5?
The first one was a tech demo. This one is just a very good platformer.
Oh.
For PS5.
They should have given it to Shadow of the Erd Tree. What the heck?
And people are mad about that because they're like, that's the DLC. That's not a game.
Oh my gosh. Whatever. I guess Elden Ring also did win 2 years ago. Anyway, so that's Balatro. Also at PAX Unplugged, we played an amazing board game that's also poker. I think it's new. It's called The Gang, and here's how it works. It's kind of like co-op Texas Hold'em, which again is a concept that I was like, what the heck? How has nobody thought about this before? This is amazing. The way it works is the fiction of the game is you and everybody playing it with you are like kind of Ocean's 11. We're doing a casino heist. We want to try to play the casino. So you're all at the poker table together. You play a game of Texas Hold'em, and your goal is by the end of it to be able to correctly sequence who has the worst hand all the way to who has the best hand in the correct order. You're not allowed to talk about it. Instead, at every kind of, if you've done Texas Hold'em, you get your 2 cards at the beginning, then there's the flop of 3 cards in the middle, the turn and the river. And so at each of those moments, there are chips that have the numbers 1 through 4, and you can take the one that you think represents where you are in the sequence, and then people can kind of take them from each other, like, well, hold on, maybe I have the worst hand. So you're communicating. Essentially, the only way you can communicate is through tells, kind of, is a way to think about it. And yeah, it takes all the knowledge that you have of poker hands and what's good and what's not good and how to read that from the rest of the table, but then makes it something where you need to cooperate in order to be successful. And it's just so genius and fun. And we had a blast playing that at like 2 a.m. So The Gang, I highly recommend trying to find a copy of that.
I just bought it on Amazon 2 seconds ago. Oops.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
It's also $15. Also, if you don't want to
it's
spend
cheap
money
for how good it is. Yeah,
you can also just use a 52 card deck and like make a couple chips on your own, and
you could just do that.
Yeah, it's totally something you could DIY if you wanted to. Anyways,
yeah,
yes.
they do have a little bit more in the box of like you can add. There are little effects that make it harder or easier. Yeah. So there is, and the chips that they give you, they're nice chips.
Yeah,
and the game's cheap, but you could also just do the game.
But support the developer
with
some way
if you
cards.
Can. Yeah,
it's cheap. It's so good. It like. Sorry, now we have to talk about The Gang for another like 2 minutes. No, it's so rare that a game can keep us up that late. We're also sleepy. It's like the second or third day of the con, and we're like, but just like, I'm so locked in. I can't even think about going to sleep right now. What are you talking about? I love the idea of because so many people don't like poker because it's competitive, and it's like, what if it wasn't competitive? Well, how do you make that fun? Oh, they did. They made it fun. That's brilliant.
Yeah, because it takes away like the tricking each other thing that can sometimes be a feel bad in poker. But it keeps the fun of like, all right, everybody show what you've got. Let's see it. And you're like, fuck. I hope I assessed this correctly. So it requires the same kind of poker knowledge and has all of the good feels, but it takes out the good feel of like dominating someone in poker, like I tricked you. That's not really in the game, but also removes the bad feeling of like, oh, I got totally bamboozled by my friends. So if that's something you don't like about poker, it's not in this game. There isn't really like tricking or deception in it.
Yeah, it's super duper fun and easy to understand. Do you also ever, I guess you have like a pretty good crew of people you can play board games with, but do you ever like play a game at something like PAX and you're like, this is the greatest experience ever, and you want to recreate it at home, and you're like, oh, I'm not with the same group of people. It was like a time and place thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Sometimes I worry about that. If I buy The Gang, am I going to be like, I'm never going to have that again, though. I'm never going to have that perfect. It's okay. Like, it's not that hard. That's the thing about, that's why it's important that board games be accessible, is so you can get more than just the one group of people that you played it with into it. So I think I'll be able to get some people for The Gang in the new year.
Yeah. And it's also like, I'm never going to have as much fun with poker as I did when I was playing it in high school at our friend Owen's house around his little like kitchen nook table or whatever. It's never going to quite feel like that, but I'll still play poker.
Yeah.
If someone wants to play poker, sure, why not?
Yeah, if the game
is
good.
And the gang's kind of like that, where we're not going to get that exact magic of playing it in the Airbnb at 2 a.m, but it's just kind of good.
All of us came out of that like, did we just experience magic? Did we just experience joy and wonderment? Or are we deliriously tired? Anyways, I'm deliriously tired from recording for so long, and I want to say thank you to Magellan for being the cloaked hero to my cloaked secret person inside of... I just wanted to reference Magellan's cloak. Also, I don't think I hit record on the video version for part 2. I don't think part 2 has
that's
video.
Okay. That's okay.
And I'm sad about it, and I just want to say sorry for that. And also, thank you for listening to XenaChatz. Goodbye, everyone. Bye. I love you.
Bye.